Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Alright, people. Review of the week time. Oh boy. We're obviously going to start with the card last night. It just kind of goes without saying. We're going to start with Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte. The things that have been said in the aftermath of that fight by both men and promoters. But I also want to talk about the actual fights that were lower down on the undercard. Because, yeah, it wasn't the strongest card in the world. But it did have some interesting little scraps on it. But just looking at some of the things that have been said, I'm going to start with the scorecards, which were... I find these scorecards bizarre, but saying that it's something that we're saying too regular now in boxing, isn't it? That when we look at a fight that's clearly gone one way, we look at the scorecards and we just say, how the hell did you arrive at that? So, let's have a look at the scorecard. So, Robert Tapper, who I said in my preview was the one judge in the first Wilder fight who actually correctly scored the Tyson Fury. Now, he gave Tyson Fury a clean sweep. The second judge, a guy called Paliao, is how you pronounce it. This is a head scratcher. This is a real head scratcher for me. I don't know how he arrived at this. So he gave Fury the first round. And to be honest with you, the first round was such a feeling out round. No one really landed anything in that first round. They didn't really do much. So you could have really given that. If you give it to Dillian Whyte, so be it. If you give it to Tyson Fury, so be it. He chose to give it to Tyson Fury. But then, bizarrely, he gave the second and the third round to Dillian Whyte. Which, again, I'm scratching my head at that. The second round, Tyson Fury came on stronger. And he really took that round. He took it, clearly. The third round was an even clearer round for Tyson Fury, so I don't know how. You really do wonder what goes on in the minds of these judges who scored these fights. Now, the other one, Guido Cavalieri, he scored it. He had a 49-46 Tyson Fury by the end. He gave the first round to Dillian Whyte. No issue really there. As I said, it really could have gone either way that first round. But to give this guy here, I mean... Again, he won't have to explain that. Obviously, I know you could say, gee, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. The Fury won. I get that, but, I just find it bizarre. Really, really bizarre that, that he can... How can you arrive at a score like that? How can you look at those two rounds and think Fury didn't win them rounds? So Dillian Whyte obviously had his say following on from the defeat. I'm going to quote him from the old BBC. To quote Dillian Whyte here, he says, I don't think there was a lot in the fight. It was a close fight. It was one slip and then I got caught with a shot. It is what it is. I didn't feel like I was outclassed or that he was levels and he was this level and I was that level. So Dillian Whyte basically saying that he felt that the fight was close, that he felt that it was a shot that, he didn't see coming, he was caught and that was it, but he felt that he was in the fight. Well, two of the scorecards don't suggest that, and from the outside looking in, Dillian Whyte, he was never in the fight. I think that there was a few people who said that they expected a dominant performance from Tyson Fury, but I think even the people who were picking Fury to win and Fury to stop him, I think a lot of them did say it, that they did expect Fury to win, but have a moment or two where Dillian Whyte would, really, come on strong. Dillian Whyte gave AJ a tough fight. Even losing to Povetkin, he was soundly winning that fight. He gave Parker, Joseph Parker was one fight removed from being a world champion. He gives all his opponents, even in losing efforts, apart from this one, tough fights. So I think we all expected him to get... I picked him to win. Obviously, I got that way wrong, but I think even the people who were picking, the majority of people who were picking Fury, expected Whyte to have moments in this fight. It was just none of that. Just absolutely none of it. So when Dillian Whyte said... I understand why he's saying it, because he's not going to come out and say, I was just beaten by someone who was just superior, and I didn't perform anything like I could, and I was just not very good. He's not going to say that. You wouldn't expect that. Eddie Hearn said that what went wrong for Dillian Whyte was inactivity. He said it didn't help, but he was beaten by a very good heavyweight. You know, like, you can make what you want about the inactivity. At the end of the day, Dillian Whyte just looked like a shell of himself in there. He really did. And again, you wonder if the Otto Wallin fight had have happened in October, just gone, really, how could Wallin, although he's not a noted puncher, I think he's a better fighter than a lot of people give him credit for. I think that the Sakalowski performance was a short notice gig, just a run out against a tricky journeyman. It's very hard to look good against Sakalowski for the most part. But I think that fight really could have ended in tears for Dillian Whyte. In terms of Bob Arum's say on this, he was asked, will Tyson Fury retire? He's been hinting at it, and he said, no, he definitely won't retire. Of course not. Are you crazy? Bob Arum saying, are you crazy? So, Fury, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. Obviously, the way, when he walked to the ring on Saturday night, it was, I don't want to say like it seemed like it was the last time, because God knows, I'm sure he's not, but he did really, me and Jamie were talking about it, he did just take it all in. Maybe this was the culmination in the case of like 10 years ago, people were kind of jeering at Tyson Fury, waiting for him to get beat, saying, you'll be beat by David Price. And 10 years later, here he is filling out Wembley Stadium. Maybe it was just a real case of, I've done it, I've arrived. He was also talking to Francis Ngannou after it. I hope that fight doesn't happen, to be honest with you. Fury versus Ngannou, it's more just a kind of gimmicky fight, to be honest with you. Ngannou, they'll try and Francis Ngannou in boxing, I mean, Jesus Christ. Look, Ngannou looks fine in the octagon, but just in boxing, just there's a no on that. Just no on that. Especially against Fury. In terms of what's next for both guys, Fury, it's just a case of watch this space, and even if AJ loses to Usyk, I would imagine he'd probably prefer the AJ fight. It's probably still a big fight, make no mistake about it. In terms of Dillian Whyte, I'm guessing, judging by the interview he gave, he's not looking to go anywhere. In terms of his next move, I mean, people are assuming it's going to be with Eddie Hearn. It might very well not be. I don't think Eddie Hearn was at that fight. Fury was FaceTiming the next day. I've seen no interviews from Eddie Hearn, certainly with, IFL Boxing Social at the arena. I wonder, does Dillian Whyte maybe feel, look, you didn't win this purse, but you didn't do enough for me. I'm going to look elsewhere. Because Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearn, although they've worked together for several years, it's always been on a fight-by-fight basis. And there's often been times during their relationship, or their working relationship, where I have felt there is that little bit of friction there. You can always kind of see that, because at the end of the day, Eddie Hearn originally brought Dillian Whyte into Matchroom as just go out there and get beat by AJ, and I'll chuck you a bone after. Dillian Whyte was able to progress. He was able to move up the rankings. He was able to move up the card to the point where he was main event of pay-per-views. Alright? So Dillian Whyte, maybe, I'm sure, looks at Eddie Hearn and thinks, you originally brought me in here just to be AJ's whipping boy, and now I'm making you money. But I can make money elsewhere. Dillian Whyte's made an enormous amount of money for someone who's never won a world title. A bit like Eubank Jr. Tremendous amount of money, no world title, but still is better off than the majority of world champions in boxing. And I think if Dillian Whyte's going to make one last go of it, there's options in the UK now other than Eddie Hearn. I mean, many of his fights were on Sky. I mean, pretty much all of them were, for certainly the pay-per-views. So Ben Shalom, he's got a boxer stable going. Hughie Fury is there. They might look to maybe do that. There's talk of Chisora possibly going with boxer to fight Hughie Fury. I'm going to say it, and I don't really know. I don't know how people are going to make of this, but Sky, I have no doubt in my mind, would do a Chisora Whyte trilogy fight. And they probably chuck it on pay-per-view. I have no doubt in my mind they do that. Both guys have seen better days. The first two fights were entertaining. No doubt in my mind they do that. If you want to look at Frank Warren, I know he's been a bit difficult for Dillian Whyte, but maybe Dillian Whyte might think, okay, maybe I once he started treating me alright, was alright. And maybe Frank Warren is thinking, I might get Dillian Whyte in, because if I can get him out on one of my cards, if Daniel Dubois, which we all expect, beats Trevor Bryan, well then, Dubois versus Whyte, WBA regular. They won't sell it as that, they'll sell it as a world title. But there you go, there's the pay-per-view fight. And Frank Warren's been invested in Dubois since he turned pro. So he'll make some, I would assume anyway, he'd make some money as investment that way. So watch the space with Dillian Whyte and see what he does next. In terms of some of the other fights that were on that card, in my opinion, the Nick Ball Isaac Lowe fight was absolutely fantastic. I really, really, really enjoyed that fight. You know, Isaac Lowe, Lowe, he's one of them guys. I'm just going to sign into BoxRec to view this because for some reason it's signed me out. Lowe was a fighter whose record's 21-2-3, 3 draws. He's really got by, and he's got by because he is a very, very close friend of Tyson Fury. I don't think he'd be featured as prominently on some of these cards if he wasn't. You know, he's pretty much fought on all of Tyson Fury's undercards and then has his own fights. He obviously got stopped there back in December of last year against Luis Alberto Lopez. Now that was an interesting fight because Lowe was having success in the fight, but he kept getting dropped because he got really bad defense. Like, this guy's defense is non-existent. And against Nicky Ball, who is an absolute pit bull of a fighter, very entertaining. I think he's quite short because he looked, he's a 5'2" welterweight, 5'2" featherweight. Even for featherweight standards, that's very short. Like 5'2", you're seeing them down at minimum weight, at light flyweight. You're not really seeing them up at featherweight. That's crazy, actually, to think he's that short. But he was like a pit bull in there against Isaac Lowe, and he was able to get a stoppage win over Isaac Lowe. Bashed him up, hit him with left hooks for fun. The stoppage was a bit kind of weird because he kind of pushed Lowe, from what I remember, back up again the ropes, and Lowe kind of got tangled in the rope. Now, you would expect the referee to call a halt to the action, break the fighters, and then let them box on, but he didn't. And, Nick Ball didn't need a second invitation. He hit Isaac Lowe with the left hook and the towel came in then. Obviously, Echo Usman got a win over Darren Tetley. That was a competitive fight. The 170-111 scorecard was a bit too wide, to be fair, but that was competitive. Adelaide against Chris Healy, who looked like he'd been dragged out of a pub. He got a 4th round stoppage. That was a good little knockout win. And obviously Tommy Fury got a point win over Daniel Bakansky. He had him down in, I believe it was round 4. I think it was round 4 or 5. Called out Jake Paul straight after. So that's what they're doing. Obviously on this card as well, Frank Warren announced that Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker, pretty much a done deal. Alright, he basically said that it's going to be in July. As I said in my video this morning, although you could say yesterday, Warren hasn't officially announced the date, but he said it's going to be in July, as is Sam Jones. I reckon they're waiting to see how Hearn and Shalom's schedules look, if they're going to have fights on this day or this day, because I just think that he just doesn't want to have clashes anymore. He said the two fighters will fight on BT Sports, so that would assume to me that Joseph Parker is now not with Eddie Hearn, that he maybe just go. I think he's still managed by David Higgins. So, and he is part of Team Fury, so I'd imagine, I wouldn't be shocked to see Joe Parker actually sign with Top Rank. He has worked with Top Rank before, so he could be going Warren, Top Rank kind of way. Wouldn't shock me at all. As I said, he's worked with Top Rank before in the past. So, Parker versus Joyce. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Joe Parker versus Joe Joyce. I like the fight. I really do. I think it's an interesting fight. I think it's an intriguing fight. And I'm looking forward to that. Like, I know it's not officially been announced, but I think that fight has the potential to catch fire. It really does. I think that fight has the potential to catch fire. In other news, really, I'm just reading this and I'm just like, oh my god. Ricky Hatton will return to the ring for an exhibition bout against Marco Antonio Barrera. Ricky Hatton last fought 10 years ago against Shabransky. No, he was Vyacheslav something. Kell Brook fought him. I think Paulie Malignaggi stopped him actually. Both I think Kell Brook and Paul both stopped him. Forget his name, Shishchenko or something like that. I think he was Ukrainian. And he was stopped with a body shot by him in the 9th round, as far as I remember anyway. Look, Ricky Hatton Hatton's been living the life, let's just say that. Living the life outside of boxing, but doing nothing but not living anywhere near the boxing life. And against Barrera, Barrera's not fought in however many years. I mean, look, I just rather not see these exhibitions, to be honest with you. It's one the YouTube kind of thing I can kind of get, to be honest with you. I'm kind of warm to that a bit, but seeing the older fighters just go in there, like remember Riddick Bowe wanted. See, this is the problem as well with these older fighters. Remember Riddick Bowe wanted to go and fight an exhibition. Surely some of these fighters have, even an exhibition is just a little bit too much, I think, for some, and maybe that's the case with Ricky Hatton, you know. In terms of other news, to be honest with you, there wasn't an awful lot of other news that was happening last week, to be 100% honest with you. I mean, last week was dominated by Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte. That was literally what was dominated by. There was a bit of Crawford, Spence news in there, but there wasn't much else on. But I want to preview a brilliant fight, which interestingly and worryingly hasn't got an undercard announced, and it's on this Saturday. That's a bit of a worry. I'd say Uncle Bob is just going to chuck this undercard together this week, and there you go. Happy days. But the card is Oscar Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson. That's happening this Saturday at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and I'm looking forward to that fight. I'm not going to do a watch along for it, but I'm definitely going to stay up and certainly get a post fight out for that fight, because I'm telling you now, people, Shakur Stevenson is going to batter Oscar Valdez. I am so confident about this pick, and I like Oscar Valdez as a fighter. His style is fun to watch. Now, the whole kind of PED thing against Conceição last year was just an absolute joke, and he lost that fight. Let's not make any mistake. He lost that fight. But I just think that he's 30 and 0. He's 31 years old now. And I mean, like, the Conceição fight was hard. The Bajel fight was easier than it should have been. The Lopez fight, he took a bit of punishment in. The Sanchez fight, I remember that. That was alright. The Scott Quigg fight was a bad one. I mean, the Scott Quigg fight, he won clearly. But I mean, he got, what was it? Quigg who got the broken nose, and Valdez got the broken jaw. He took a lot of shots in that fight. It was a good fight, don't get me wrong, but he took an awful lot of shots in there from Scott Quigg. And I just think that Valdez now I don't think he's near the end necessarily, but I just think Shakur really came to age in the Hearn fight. I think Shakur Stevenson, that was when he came of age. I remember when he turned over first. He turned over originally, I believe it was April 2017, 5 years ago. Actually, almost 5 years to the day, just on the 22nd. And I remember that. I remember thinking Shakur he was only, 19 years old. And it was actually on, funny enough, actually. It was actually on Oscar Valdez versus Miguel Mariaga. That was his first defense of his world title, actually, I believe. Jesse Magdaleno fought on that card as well. You don't hear much from him anymore. He's really been in the wilderness. Oh, he actually fought in 2020. That's mad. I remember him. I remember Jesse Magdaleno. But I remember seeing him when he turned over, and I just thought he doesn't really have his man strength. The man strength just isn't there. But it was the fight he had against Simeon, who at the time had never been stopped. His only 2 losses came against Scott Quigg and Lee Selby, are both on points. And Shakur stopped him in a round. From that moment on, I did see him start to gain a little bit more of his man strength. Obviously, he was able to move up in it because he's ever grown. And now, I think in the Herring fight, which was last October, that was when the stars aligned. That's when we really saw what we have here. And I think that he's going to batter Oscar Valdez from pillar to post, probably stop him late. And honest to God, right, Shakur will move up to 135 pounds sooner rather than later. I can't see him going for undisputed at 130 because he's growing. He's growing. At 135, with the exception of maybe Loma, Kambosos, Garcia, Tank, even Haney, I think that if he doesn't beat them all, he beats the majority. With the exception of Loma, I think Loma is just still a little bit too high up there. But Shakur, man, this kid is special. I'm telling you now, mark my words, this kid is going to beat the crap out of Oscar Valdez this weekend. We're going to really see a coming of age fight from Shakur Stevenson this weekend. 100%. I think his style is not for everyone, and there have been fights such as where was it? Where was it? It was this one here, the Jose Gonzalez fight, which wasn't the most entertaining fight in the world. I'll admit that. It wasn't the most entertaining. He got the job done, but it wasn't the most entertaining. But I'm telling you now, the kid's an absolute problem for anyone out there, and I really do see him. I think he's gonna. We're really gonna see the best of him this weekend. So that's pretty much it. As I said, there wasn't much to talk about other than the Fury Whyte fight, but I wanted to get some other stuff in there. There just wasn't much else to talk about. But obviously, we've got that fight coming up this weekend, which I'm very much looking forward to. And I've got some more stuff planned for the week. Watch the space. I would have liked to have done it today, but I was out with my friends watching the Liverpool game earlier, so yeah, couldn't do that. But for now, lads and lads, I'll leave you with that. Happy Monday. Hope you enjoy it. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. 7,260 something subscribers now. So we're getting there, peeps. We're getting there. Keep sharing the videos. Keep getting the name out. The goal is 10k by the end of the year. We're well on the way for that, right? We're into the 2,000 mark now in terms of when we're nearly there. So come on, let's keep it going. For now, lads and lads, I'll talk to you. Peace.